Hello there, and welcome to Collage Tip Tuesday. My tip for you today is when you're starting with a new palette, is to look for different ways that you can create fussy cuts and other creative cuts using your papers. I have a couple collages, completed collages here laid out from the Giraffe collection. And as you can see here, we have elements from these papers that were used to create really interesting designs. And then the other thing when we're doing the creative cuts or the fussy cuts is to consider how you're cutting them so that you can have interesting negative shapes left over. So you can see down here, and it might be easier to just go ahead and show you rather than pointing them out on this. So I'm going to move these aside, and I'm going to go strip by strip and taking a look at different ways that I can cut the papers. So for instance, starting here, for obvious cuts, so a fussy cut is just going ahead and looking for a design element within the paper that can be cut out. So here, these are little flowers, and I'm just going to go ahead and cut these. And as I cut, I'm considering what I'm going to be left over with. So I'm going to cut, leaving a little bit of that edge there. And that leftover piece will be able to be used in the collages as well. So I'll speed this up and finish this first strip here. And now this last piece here, we're not getting the full shape. We'll get a partial, it's a little bit cut off at the end, but I'm going to still cut it out because this piece here could be interesting at the edge of a collage. So if we take this one, we could actually set that up at the edge. So this is still a nice piece to use. So now I have the negative shape here left over, and this will be a really nice collage element as well. Now this here and here, these are the same design, so I could go ahead and cut out the same, and I'm going to do that now. Okay, for this one, I made the decision to clip a little bit of the edge here so that I could try to keep this together. Now, I did end up with two pieces here, but that's fine because, again, these can be used as interesting pieces. So even doing something like this, if I'm laying out a collage, I could piece it together with this one here so that these designs fit into the curves of this piece here. And I'm going to go ahead and cut the last piece. Okay, and for this one, I decided to leave that attached because I might want to actually glue it down like that or something like that. So this one I left in one piece. So that's how I go about doing the fussy cuts. Again, a fussy cut is cutting the elements. Now, for these here, I'm going to go ahead and you can make the decision for fuzzy cuts to go as close to the design element as you'd like. So here, instead of cutting it out as a circle, I'm going to go ahead and cut the individual flower petals. Leaving a little bit of a border around them. And this is what we're left with for this piece here. So this again will make a really fun piece to use. I could layer it on something like that. Or using the same palette, the reds together. So it's a very similar value, but very subtle. I'll go ahead and do the same here just so I can have all the pieces cut out. So now I have these really fun, interesting pieces of the scraps that I can use for different collage elements. And then those were the most obvious ones to start with because you can actually do the fussy cuts. So cutting out the exact design. Now this one here, so these here, let's just organize them. We could decide to do fussy cuts by cutting out these individual flowers. And what I think I'll do is, yes, I'm going to cut them out. So these are a little bit more challenging. They're smaller. There'll be more of them, but these can certainly be used for little elements. They could be placed if we're doing something like this. They could be placed in the center. Let's see. Now you can see that. So we could create little collage pieces like that. So all sorts of ideas come up when you're creating all these little elements. And as I said, it's usually how I'll start a palette. I'll go piece by piece, cutting them out, not knowing exactly how I'll use them, but ideas will start coming to me. And you can see this, I'm cutting out the center flowers here. So now I'm ending up with another really interesting piece here. So for this one, I could make that final cut so I have two pieces like that, but I think I'm going to keep it together for now. And just save it as is. And as you can see, as I was cutting these out, I was just trying them out on these other pieces here to see what that would look like. I could put them in the center of these. So just coming up with ideas as I cut. I will go ahead and do the same for these two pieces. So these are the leftover pieces from this pattern here. And then moving on I think I'm going to start with these. These ones don't have obvious fussy cuts, so there's not an actual element, but for these, if I'm looking at it, maybe I want to, and I did this, let's see, and I'm going to grab the giraffe here. So I created these little shapes here. I wasn't sure how I was going to use them, but I ended up using them on the side. So for that, what I did was just cut out little clusters of these lines here, and then knowing that I'll be able to use them somehow. So just going along and then keeping in mind that I'm saving the scrap, the negative space, to be used in the collages. So this is how I'm deciding to cut out this piece. So you can see that this will be an interesting piece. So whatever comes to you in terms of these shapes that don't have the obvious patterns to cut out, but knowing that you can just cut out any interesting shape that you see within there and then find a place for it in your collages, something unexpected. So look at how fun that piece is there. And there. So when I see these, I even think that I could place these shapes on top. I could do little ones like that. So just playing around. So I can do the same for these. Just looking for interesting, maybe I want to do some longer pieces. And then this last piece, I'm just seeing the rows of circles here, or partial circles. So I'm gonna go ahead and, let's see, I'm looking at it from this angle too, because maybe I want to do something like this. And it might not make sense to me right now what it's going to end up being. Just any interesting shapes that come to me. It'll make that collage play really interesting, just trying out different pieces together. So that's what I came up for with that one. And then the last ones are the dotted, the polka dots. And these I can cut out individual sections. What I did here, so let's place this, is that I decided to make them into these little kind of arrow shapes. So I'll show you how I did that, if I can figure it out. Is I went like this. And this was a fun way to use those because I did like how that turned out. So that's what I did for these. So here I can just cut up just like that. So I'm making a cut just above, in between the rows. And then I'm going to come at it from this side here. We get those interesting shapes. So that's one way to do it. Another way that we could cut these is maybe do something like this. So that's kind of a fun one. And then for the last piece, even, I'm just looking for a pattern. So I could do any of those. I could cut them in strips straight this way. So the last piece, I'm not sure. Let's see, keeping these together. So do something like this. So these are just little X's. That's kind of cool. Okay, so there are all my creative cuts and my fussy cuts. And my last tip for you today is to organize them in, this is just a craft bin. So I'm gonna quickly clean up so that they'll all be ready for collaging. And so that's how I keep my pieces, my fussy cuts, my creative cuts organized so that when I'm ready to collage, they're all right there together. And again, let's take a look at some of the mini collages that I created with this same collection using all the little pieces that I had cut out before. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you in our next session.